This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, a preponderance of ponderances. I ask Aaron and Joey about a few things that have been on my mind.
Woo! Come on, skinny love, just last this pod. This is what a Joey sounds like.
This is too long of a bit. This is what an Aaron sounds like. That was the bad Ponderosa steakhouse thing.
A fliggle giggle, giggle. And this is what an executive producer and Tenacious D, Jess Vander, sounds like.
Hi, this is Jess. If only I could be like Jack Black in his enthusiasm for the jams.
And his shocking athleticism?
Yes. He's a Broadway star. I mean, come on. Well, film of Broadway, right? Was School of Rock a movie first? I don't know how this stuff works anymore.
I think it was a movie first.
No, that's right.
Have you seen him play I think it's called a boomaphone? Or
I have not.
It's like a toy saxophone.
I've only seen him play a really clever explorer in both Jumanji films.
Sax-a-boom. It's called a sax-a-boom. It's like a toy saxophone, and there are like videos of him playing it. And one of them, I think he was on Jimmy Fallon, and like played his sax-a-boom with the Roots.
And it's available on eBay for $695. The exact one that he played with the Roots. I'm just saying.
Fair enough.
The internet doesn't lie.
I mean, you're a legend if you can play a toy saxophone with the Roots, and you're not embarrassing yourself somehow.
Yes. Oh, by the way, I am just going to self-correct that we have just uncovered. Is there a news sound for like breaking news coming in? Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. There is an eBay scam that has just been uncovered on what's that called again? The internet. Yes.
Street,
apparently
up
a
where
number.
They walk, up where they...
But apparently there are just like a ton of Sax-a-booms from 1998 being sold on eBay that are all being said to have been played by Jack Black in Tenacious D. I am literally looking at least 5 different listings that range.
The man only uses his Sax-a-booms once.
Yes.
He is like
once at
John
a time,
Travolta's t-shirts.
Yes. This is outrageous. I think that we need to talk to Madame eBay or whoever runs eBay. I would like to speak to them immediately for restitution.
I'm hearing the John Love it or leave it, boop, 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 gay news, with eBay news.
100%.
The eBay news.
Yes. The segment will be back. Yes.
Well, the house is clean. We have a special episode for ourselves this week in which Aaron and I know not what's happening. A special episode of we're working on the intro music. It's still we need to get our Sax-a-boom that we ordered from eBay, but this is a special episode of Preponderances of Ponderances, Jess Vander edition.
Yes.
As quickly as possible. My ambition is to get through all 5 of these questions, and maybe we'll have quick answers. Maybe we won't, but we'll see what we can get through. Are you ready?
We're known for our brevity. I'm ready.
Maybe you'll dance the funky chicken at your 75th wedding anniversary.
Classic
dance.
Question 1. I've been sitting on this idea for several weeks now. After scratching my head, looking at a recipe for a honey glazed mushrooms with udon, which I would highly recommend, and I'll add it to the show notes. It's super easy and it's pretty good. And in the ingredients list, it asks for a pound of cremini mushrooms. and I was looking all over the place to try to figure out what is a cremini mushroom. I cannot picture a cremini mushroom. It looks kind of just like a mushroom, like a button mushroom, just sort of the more standard mushroom fare that I would have expected. I was looking all over, and it turns out that's basically what it is. And my question for the room is, why don't we just call a mushroom, a spade, a thing?
Oh, this brings us to my sub-segment, Fungus Among Us, where we talk about all the fungus that we love. Interestingly, the cremini mushroom is the same species as the white mushroom and the portobello mushroom.
Oh, that makes so much sense. So is it a subset of? Is it in the same way that the brassicas are all of the same family? That it's sort of
I think so.
Variation?
I'm certainly not an expert about these fungus. I just know they're among us. And but I sometimes it could be just like light exposure or like subspecies, but sometimes creminis are called baby bellas for baby portobello mushrooms, but apparently they're all Agaricus bisporus.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my, I think I got a friend named Agaricus. What I don't know is, and I really have fallen in love with mushrooms over the past couple of months. And I even recently found a really nice video that broke down why the best way to make mushrooms is actually to boil them, not to saute them.
Yeah, you was this like the thing that you said about it's impossible to overcook a mushroom?
This is why that method is so good. This is the reason why, because then it actually essentially you're simmering a mushroom in its own mushroom broth because you're stewing the water in it. And then, it's delicious. The great thing about it though, is that it doesn't matter what type of mushroom you use. It could be the wooden ear? No.
Wood ear?
Wood ear mushroom.
Wood ear mushroom. You can use something like that. You could use.
Gross.
I don't like
You're not into wood ears?
I
really
do not like them. They are
Interesting.
slime fest.
And this may be partially solved by boiling it. It is something that you get the slime off. It creates an umami, a super umami mushroom broth.
Right, a broth.
Yes. And so your mushrooms taste more mushroomy. This doesn't actually answer the question at all. I just wanted to share a fact about mushrooms. Is that okay?
That's what this is for. It's a preponderance of mushroom ponderances.
Yes.
I mean,
so
what's interesting in this case is there is actually, it seems, a purpose because the subspecies has a different, richer flavor profile than the white mushroom, even though they're, kissing cousins or whatever among mushrooms. But you can accomplish a distinction for the ideal recipe in this case, right? They're, I think, both quite firm, so you're getting a texture difference or a texture similarity from a white mushroom, but there is more flavor in a cremini than a white mushroom.
And the most correct alternate name would be a baby bella. That is actually the same thing, or is it another?
I just saw some packaging when I'm searching for creminis that has it looks like a Publix package, like a Publix, the grocery food store, calls them baby bellas. So I don't know how
mushroom
frequently that's happening.
Yeah, big mushroom added again. Yes. Truly, yes. And I think this is the thing that mainly I'm trying to figure out. Is this sort of a squab pigeon situation where just for brand sake?
They're also called button mushrooms.
Okay, right. That's what I thought.
In packaging.
Yeah, so this is sort of what's confusing is I can understand why you might want to rebrand the pigeon for culinary purposes, call it a squab, because then it feels like you're not eating the same thing that would be flying about on the city streets, because you're probably not having at least that. It's not that it was caught outside fresh that morning type of a situation, you know what I mean? But I think that what I'm trying to understand is, is there a difference? Is there some kind of reason that you would have all these fancy names, or is it just to try to confuse us all?
These are taking different approaches for reference frames for people, right? So I think different grocery stores that I'm finding, like Stop and Shop was calling it button mushrooms, where Publix was calling it baby bellas. And so like regional cuisine may create a different reference frame for categorization. So if you're more familiar with portobello mushrooms or is an increased part of a diet, then saying like this is it effectively is a baby bella, right? There's the same species, it's just different versus like if you don't have experience with those things, then calling it a button mushroom is just like, it's small, right? Like
it's like Hellman's versus Best Foods, or like other things that's just you've grown familiar with this way of describing something. It's like dialectical differences. It's pineapple rain versus sun shower. It's mischief night versus whatever else everyone calls the night before Halloween.
Right, and like cremini, I'm assuming is either French or Italian as like an origin. So if your recipe is coming from someone who is like traditionally culinarily trained, then their frame of reference would be to call it a cremini versus a button or a baby bella.
We cracked the code. Joey cracked the code.
I don't know. I'm throwing a nefarious twist on the code. I think we might even be charitable.
Ooh.
Yes. Hypothesizing, have done no research on the cremini. This is a ponderance of ponderances after all. However, after having gone through making 2 different beef bourguignon recipes these past couple of months, very different experiences. But in watching the original first episode of the French Chef with Julia Child, what was really, really amazing is that you get a sense of how mushrooms were used in different types of meals and when those types of meals became more popular. So again, cynical branding hat on, I think that each one of them are for a different period in time where mushrooms were being tried to be introduced to the public for different uses. So one was like, let's fancify it by going like Franco-Italian, branding it cremini. Another one was buttons. You're trying to use them maybe more in stews or something like that where you don't want a giant like meaty mushroom. And actually with vegetarian movements happening, maybe there's more like burger mushroom size type, swap outs for full size portobellas. And then you've got the, which one am I forgetting? Baby bella, button, baby bella, right.
White mushroom. The white mushroom.
You're trying to tell people this is the most versatile mushroom. You can use it in any sort of ingredient, any sort of preparation that you want. But then it spikes and food culture moves on. But like we've got different people shopping in the grocery store. Don't forget the mushroom because mushrooms are
trying to keep it relevant.
They know how polarizing mushrooms are. So then that means you got to keep the people that hate it away. But then you constantly have new generations of people that'll be like, I'll try these mushrooms because you've said that they're creamy in the way that they're going to be incorporated into my
I just want to give a shout out to shiitakes and
True.
Yes.
Chestnut mushrooms.
Double true. Triple true.
I don't know if you've ever had a chestnut mushroom. There's a mushroom person that sets up in like a small farmer's market near my house, and chestnut mushrooms.
So Brooklyn.
Very good.
Folks, we have to move on.
Let us ponder.
Two.
Over various periods of time, get into waves where I think a lot about death. And a few days ago, an article came out on the Times about another lost art. We recently talked about the lost art of falconry, but this article was on the lost art, or the fading art at least, of preserving the dead. And I have always been really interested in, all the different things that happen to us after we die. And it's like, there's so many different things about how, people are exploring with, have you heard of aquamation? It's basically like cremation through water, where you'd basically just like dissolve a body instead of burn a body. And it's much better for the environment, but there are like so many different types of ways to treat a body. And anyway, the main issue with all of this is that it is really unappealing for new people to be trained in how to do this type of thing. Like most people, especially in a traditional mortuary where they are embalming bodies, are doing so because it's been like passed along through their families and things like that. And so my question is, who's going to handle all the bodies?
This question is, I love this question for a couple of reasons. This is also my way of dodging an immediate answer. One is that it highlights just the fact that like in death, anyone who's had to deal with it in any capacity has had to deal with the fact that there is a disposal challenge at the exact same time that there is an emotional challenge, and they are an Ouroboros of horrible. Like, it just sucks. It is the worst feeling to have to be thinking about that. But it also is fueled by American, at least in our case, like American culture being so death averse and so unwilling to create rituals that allow folks to be able to process grief over the period of time that it really needs to. Like, grief should be beginning before you lose someone, and so that you have the skills to be able to, and the openness and the safety to be able to discuss and process when they're not gone. So anyway, I had to get that out there because like the emotions tied to it are really like they're real and they're moving. So setting aside all those emotions that are so deeply entwined, the disposal question, like, it's a real issue. Like, we're just gonna keep doing things the way that we've always been doing it, and at some point we have to stop and realize, like, we this is going somewhere. Like, this is impacting our environment.
And trend wise, like, embalming is out, but cremation is in. And still just like,
But so I agree with a lot of what you were saying, Aaron, right? Like, the sort of cultural orientation to death, and certainly, at least in the United States, I don't want to speak for like the entire West, but the United States has like a very fearful orientation to death, and sort of a taboo around speaking about it and addressing it, and the result is that then you interact with grief in sort of like private, which is not like really the best way to deal with grief.
It's literally the worst.
But the disposal part, I have like a big problem with it from like purely like an environmental factor, right? Like, we are a like giant carbon sequestration units, and like when a body goes, like I sort like, we shouldn't be embalming it, but even embalming is actually, from an environmental perspective, better than burning it, because then we're just releasing all the carbon back up into the atmosphere, and it's not like the cremation facilities are using carbon scrubbers to like capture all, like, you know, feed me to the worms, like, I'm great, like. But there is sort of this orientation again with the sort of sanctity of a body, and, you know, I think a living body, sure, but like, if I'm dead, there's no sanctity left in me, from my perspective. So,
well, you're touching on the I think something. This is the reason why they're so tightly intertwined together, is because like there's obviously faith elements to it that impact the way that people think about what happens, what should or is happening to a body after it's gone. And then the other thing that you sort of underscored for me is that, like, and I'm kind of taking this as an opportunity to recharacterize the way that I even was initially posing it. I think that like mainstream American culture, however we want to define it, is resistant to figuring out or adopting the ways that all the cultures that actually make up American culture have figured out how to more healthfully process the disposal of a body. And in many of those is probably a lot of solutions that can get to the sort of ecological considerations. Like, maybe there actually are there very likely are rituals that exist that are not just better for all those who are left behind, but also is better for the earth and what's going on. And we're just not curious about leveraging those and incorporating those more often.
Let's just totally rebrand the funeral occasion.
Yes.
Let's just like make it a totally different thing and help the environment as we go and learn from cultures who are smarter.
Can we put ourselves in like a mystery beetle box or something like that, and the beetles eat us, like all the flesh?
Is this
and
like a Schrodinger's coffin situation?
You take the skeleton out, and then you mount the skeleton in like a funny position with clothes on, like
this
out
is
in
very
the open.
me. This is very me.
Why are the beetles related to this?
because Joey must have been watching.
They'll eat us.
Oh, got it.
Oh, I see. I thought you were going for The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. I also think that this whole thing, I mean, rebranding like the rituals and all that, like this is a big thing in like Southern. There's so many more rituals that I think end up being spoken about and then what are actually going on. Because like in a lot of like Southern Black homes, like it's always homegoing. Like it's not even a funeral, it's a homegoing and it's a celebration. And that doesn't mean that it's like a full blown like party, but even that in and of itself is intended to make it celebratory about like what this person did, not how sad are we that they're gone. Like it's trying to introduce a lens to it.
I just rewatched Snatch and thinking about like the pikey funerals and like just getting drunk and
what is that?
The Snatch is one of it's so good. It's Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. What's the
Guy Ritchie?
Guy
Ritchie wrote and directed. It's one of his like first Lock, Stock, and then Snatch. Brad Pitt plays a pikey, which is like a traveler group, sort of a gypsy group within Great Britain. Has like a really thick like mixed accent, and they have like a huge party, and he's like super drunk when his mother is killed in the movie. I'm just thinking about those like celebratory, revelatory types of mixed emotions, complex emotions, right? Like it does feel like American funerals have an expectation of somberness and sort of like one note in like one emotional note, at least the ones that I've been to, as opposed to being like able to be happy and sad and, you know, missing someone and celebrate, like that there can be sort of a deeper stew of emotions. We need mushrooms in the stew, which brings us to number 3.
We only have time for one more, so I'm going to read the 3 questions aloud and you will choose your own adventure of which to go down. With no context, here are the questions.
Yes.
1. When was the last time something changed the game for you? 2. What's even the point of average? And 3. How do you figure out if it's objectively good?
Oh my God. Okay. I'm just going to start answering one of them and we'll see. And then you can just be like, I don't want to talk about
Let's do it.
And I'm fine. The reason that I'm thinking about objectively good, how can you figure out if something is objectively good? Is because like, come on, that's like the most philosophically perfect question ever. There is no objectivity. It's just like, it's preponderances of subjective, proflagration, that's not a word, that just float around. You know, I'm getting close to 2 different words that just like ate each other and like we're going fast, so I'm just letting them both sit by the highway. It's okay, they'll get aqua cremated at some point. When we have
conflagration,
conflagration, the idea of objectivity, I think, doesn't actually exist. It's always something that is going to be pushed through a subjective lens that is created by our own interpretation of multiple other subjective perspectives from other people. Like, I don't believe, I think that you can always, with all of those different pieces of insight, get to a line that's approaching 0, so to speak, but you'll never actually get to absolute 0 with all of those different perspectives, because that would be what objectivity is. So it's always just an approximation of how many it's fundamentally an approximation. It is always divined from multiple different perspectives that we can only consume so much of at once. And therefore it is still useful, because then it moves us all toward trying to stitch all the different perspectives that we can't see together into whatever that close to objective ball is. That's how I think about it.
Yeah. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Aaron. I think one, like, good is such a loose term that like it sort of demands greater definition. But then to the other point, right? Like, even as I've been sort of in this sort of consciousness, agency, like universal truth type of world that I've been digging into a lot recently.
As
like,
one does.
Yeah, as you do. like the increasing perspective among like both AI researchers, philosophers, and physicists seems to be that like our understanding of what is like truly the fabric of the universe isn't actually very good. Like we are avatars that are just sort of getting okay at making sense in a sort of consistent understanding of the universe, right? And so even in that case, there may be something that is objectively good, but we're not good arbiters of identifying that because we're not even able to sort of see what is objectively real about the universe. And so then it becomes this huge conversation about aesthetics, which is inherently subjective.
Philosophically, agree. Practically,
Ooh.
this
made my spine tingle.
This came from a place of trying to be. It's really interesting starting with no context because this question emerged from a place of making recommendations to people and how I was recommended a product that I was told smelled great, only to discover that it smells like Fruit Loops, and it is a hair care product. And I don't want those flavors in my hygienic experience.
Yes, I understand.
And it was just this realization
in your
of like,
smellosphere.
Yeah, and it was just this realization of like, to be honest with you, I was sold on this as an objective baseline of like, it's delicious, and then realized like, nope, that's a you thing. This is a subjective assessment of what is a good smell or a bad smell. And I wish I had known because, and product aside, the product is actually quite compelling, but it's more of this space of assessment and trying to be able to communicate when something is just what I thought it was versus most people agree that the baked goods from this establishment are delicious. Like most people who go there would say like, yep, that is a good bakery, for example. And you'd be hard pressed to find someone who disagrees because most people who walk in and out are satisfied customers. And so that is the origin of this. And I think all you're saying is really true about sort of the universe's approach to trying to find objectivity and trying to stay open-minded and realize that we don't know a lot of things. But what about when it comes to brass tacks of trying to find what's good or not good?
This is why I always hew toward review sites or content that is about, first of all, shoving everything through this is my opinion and my experience lens. And
you're touching on question two. You're right. I am. Because like the other part of it is that I just need to know, I need specificity in what you experienced with it. And then I am going to determine whether or not it is good. So I'll give you 3 really fast examples. Jake Baldino is one of my he's over at Game Ranks. He's my favorite video game reviewer because he is so it's an average.
He's always very, very clear about like, this is my perspective. This is what I experienced with it. You figure out whether or not this fits for you because I don't know what, he was right about Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights sucks. I'm so sad about it. First DOA game of the season. Second example is the Gutter Guard video I watched last night because this is what happens.
Got it. This is just life at this time.
He was so good at just saying, these are all the pros and cons. I just want pros and cons. I don't want your recommendation. And then he did make it and he was right. But there's that. And then the third example is baked goods. America's Test Kitchen, ultimate lemon meringue pie recipe. They say this, and also all things American Test Kitchen, to be honest. It's like, no, this is good, and I can trust you, just like I trust Wirecutter, because you're doing it through research to say, this is why it doesn't work, or these are the gaps, and then I can actually say, no, this is objectively, and it was, the best lemon meringue pie I've ever had.
You're just saying you trust their subjectivity.
You are right. That is true. I don't believe that you're right. And I still don't believe that it's objectively good. I'm trusting their subjectivity. But what I appreciate is that they don't say like, I mean, I guess inherently it is a recommendation, but like, it's more so that I didn't take them for it. I like took all those things and then searched other recipes again and was like, oh, they don't do that. Oh, that way. Exactly. And then I was able to come to like,
the same.
even as I say that, I'm
independent
patchworking
conclusion.
together subjectivity to come to a conclusion that I'm happy with. But
It's a trick.
that's true. It's still, and even the record that Joey, you're right. You have
dismantled
my mantle.
It comes to the averages question. The second question, right, is like if you set a guardrail around what is good, right, of saying like the average is like 5 stars or above 75% of people leave satisfied, like you were saying, then you can sort of construct some measure that you will choose to define as objectively good. But it also comes back to the question in discussions like this of what's the median, where averages versus median sort of bring different perspectives in this case, right? Because good can be extremely polarizing, right? In these cases, like your friend likes Fruit Loop pear and you don't like Fruit Loop pear, but if the median is people give it 4 stars, then it tells you something versus if you say like the average is 2.5 or whatever, right? Like you can start to get different discussions in these averages about understanding things. And like if the median is 5 stars, but it's a 3.5 because so many, like a big cluster of people go all the way to the bottom, like, anyways, we're just talking math now.
Don't you just think though that what matters more is the thing against which you are measuring? Take the best chocolate chip cookie, for example. Like if you're measuring that by crispness, you're going to get a totally different rating than if you're measuring by fudginess. And if you're measuring by density of chip, you know what I mean? Like the average is less the point than the category of measuring thing.
Which is why I tell everybody this. If you're on Amazon and you're trying to figure out what you want to get, only read the 3-star reviews, because in the 3-star reviews, people are more critical about what worked for them and didn't work for them. Like the 5s and the 1s are always just people saying it didn't show up on time or my experience was terrible with it, but it doesn't come from a place of actual critique. Whereas if you do 3, if you look at the 3 stars, then people are more likely to break down fudginess versus crispiness versus chocolate density, etc. And you are more informed to make a decision that fits with what you want, which I love. It's just smarter.
And let's not even talk about the difference between British interpretations of cookies and American.
True. Oh my God. If we had time for that, we would get into that, but we don't because it's time to wrap this corner up.
Wow.
First,
hit it.
We talked about mushrooms, both in how regionalisms play a role in the way that we refer to them, and also like, is Big Mushroom secretly trying to make moves to keep mushrooms relevant? We have no idea. But the next
humongous
question,
fungus is actually what the industry is called. It's not Big Mushroom, it's humongous fungus.
Got it.
8 points.
Speaking of a humongous problem is also just the glut of bodies that we have to deal with, and both the functional and emotional sides of processing death is really it's just an ongoing situation. I don't know if we came to any conclusion there, but certainly we did not come to any conclusion about things that are objectively good versus subjectively good. And I really love this exploration. And I think I would be happy to plant my flag in the ground that chewy cookies are objectively better than those dry little crisps that are basically crackers. But like, you know, I understand that is actually
I like biscuits.
Me. The take for me. And thanks for pondering.
Such good ponderances.
Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by the smell that things should smell like, which was also brought to you by Isaiah Mustafa in those Old Spice ads. Where did you go, Isaiah?
As always, we'd like to thank executive producer and smell-o-vision viewer, Jess Vander.
Can I just be smell-o-vision?
Yeah, and smell-o-vision.
Great. Thanks to you and Aaron. I'd also like to thank sound engineer and the ultimate objectively good human being, Alex Contel.
We'd like to thank programming coordinator and sales call dealer Les Jacobs. That's an inside joke.
That's okay. And thanks to our production crew and two folks that have changed the game for me, Sarah Gilbert and Nora Mestridge.
And as always, thanks, Ellen.
Thanks, Len.
I should have made a joke about medians and averages, but I feel like that would have been insulting to someone somehow.
Yeah.
It's, no one wants to be the average.
Special thanks to shiitake mushrooms again.
Yes.
Because they did not get enough credit the first go round. We had to keep going. But let's be real, they're the bomb.
Soy sauce soaked and dried shiitakes. Wow. Umami bomb.
Bro, just think about it. The phrase, special thanks to the phrase umami bomb, which has been able to persist despite other flavors not necessarily having that same kind of, catchy tagline. But, good for you, umami. You're making your way downtown.
Catchy jingoism? Like, what are you? It's a sweet assault rifle. Like, it's a sour pucker sour. It's the sweetest sweetie sweet. Like, they don't have one, but umami has one. You try to find your own. Find your own at the. It's a sour munition.
Okay. I would also like to thank the morticians of the world for, doing the thing that I really don't want to do. I really don't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, thanks to your ponderances and the preponderance of them.
Well, I'm happy to chat them through. Who knows? Maybe the next time we'll talk about the other things. Oh, you know what I'd like to add? Even though we didn't talk about it, the thing that changed the game, in case you were curious, is the Albanese gummy bear. Have you had this?
No.
If you had to say the brand name of the quintessential gummy bear manufacturer, who would you have said?
Personal favorite is Haribo.
Okay, so I would have said like Haribo is like the one that I know. But I tasted what is to tie it back to point number 3, perhaps the objectively best gummy bear I have seen or witnessed, which removes the importance at this point. But I have to say, it was just spectacularly flavorful. Haribo doesn't actually add flavors to the different bears in such a way. It is largely driven by the color of the bear, your experience of the taste flavor. Whereas like these gummy bears have actual individual flavors, and it is just the right texture, bite to chew to spring. You know what I mean? Haribo are quite hard, I feel like, as gummies go.
They have a good chew to them, which is why I
more
like
chew
them.
than normal, I would say. But
yeah, that's what I like about them. Yeah, but I would agree that the flavor profile is
lacking.
Sugar with a lemon sneeze, or like sugar with a lime cough. Like it's
it's
just a glancing.
It's all in your head. It's not even a thing.
They taste different.
If you like plug your nose and you try to taste the difference, or not plug your nose, sorry, close your eyes. Yeah, it's kind of amazing.
We're gonna test it. Next week, let's actually do a gummy test.
Aradhana Krishna at the University of Michigan does a blind taste test of exactly this type of experiment with these gummy bears to this end. Look into her sensory marketing research. She is a legend of our time.
Yeah, but all tasters aren't created equal.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Catch us next time.
Thank you.
Where we eat a lot of gummy bears on this show. Okay, bye.
Bye.
As you would say, F it, we'll do it live.